welcome back to Louis Jarvis Show.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode and a new season of On Air with Jarvis, the podcast of all things Warhammer and general stuff I find of interest. Joining me this week is a familiar voice you all might recognize, that being Mariscal Hubrecht from our last Church Analyze video. How's it going, good sir?
It's all going very good. Good, sir. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, thanks, and thank you for coming back on to the show. And yeah, so looking back, I think we did a very good job on the last Church video. I think we presented well, and I think the video itself was pretty good. So what do you have to think on it?
I actually very proud that we kind of had the courage, so to speak, to make a video over such a sensitive topic, because that story addresses a very sensitive topic in and of itself, and I'm kind of sort of very proud of us that the video turned out the way it did. I feel very satisfied with how it turned out.
Yeah, and if it's not politics, I can get people riled up. It's the topic of religion, because almost everybody has probably had the Reddit age, you know?
Yes.
You know who I'm talking about.
Definitely.
You all know who I'm talking about. The whole meme of the whole Reddit atheism meme.
We have all been there at some point, so I understand where you're coming from.
One mention of religion, and that will get people riled up. But yeah, I think we did a really good covering on the video. We critiqued the story. We did talk about some issues, the author's fault of not knowing bits of history, like how you would point out in the story or in the video. But I think we talked about the subject maturely, and I think the presentation was good for it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Louis.
And that was a pretty long video to do. I think it took me 3 days to edit it, to do the audio and make the video.
That was definitely a podcast in all but name, pretty in a way,
It was basically a podcast. Even though it was a Louis Jarvis Show episode, I think something like that was needed, because my original idea was just random rambles. But with this one, we had a good discourse on it. With a historian, as with yourself and a 40K fan, you were able to help make a presentation for us that made the story even something more grand to talk about.
Yes, and I was very honored that you allowed me, you invited me to talk about this subject in that video. I may be an historian. I'm no academic eminence or anything, but I do feel there were some bits about the periods of history that the Emperor refers to in that story that definitely weren't the most accurate, and that the average person may have not the most intimate knowledge of.
Yeah, it's not the whole argument of, it's an unreliable narrator that everybody in the community would keep saying. I think at the end it was just the fault of the author of not really knowing. But hey, no one's perfect.
Yeah, no one's perfect, and even if he did, we could take all of that as the Emperor just simply wanted to spin his own version of things to support what he wants to say. I know that a lot of people, I have seen that more and more people are kind of are getting kind of having mixed opinions about the whole thing with Warhammer literature, in which but it's an unreliable narrator, we don't know if that's what actually happens. And I've seen kind of more and more people be come on, stop it with the unreliable narrator thing, or people actually defending it. I'm kind of on the fence about it, but we could definitely take it as such,
Yeah, and with all honesty, that is kind of a argument that I get tired of hearing every so often, if I'll be honest.
Yeah, I get where that comes from. Like, I understand like, why Black Library and, general Warhammer lore kind of like, how do I put this? Kind of like, leans on this whole unreliable narrator thing because, the galaxy is a huge place.
Mhm.
The Imperium isn't exactly very centralized. Well, now the Imperium is ripped in two. Communication is slow and unreliable. So, like, I get it where it comes from, and when it's done correctly, it adds a lot more value to the universe. But I think that a lot of people like reach a point where like, oh, so this is what happens in that book. Oh, but that's just what the book tells us, and they're like, oh, come on, man,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you just tell me that. Are you just going to tell me that the whole novel I just read may not actually be true? Come on, to make me feel people then like feel like they're just wasting their time. I feel like that's how some people might take it.
That is kind of like how I'm taking it. And it gets to a point where it's like, there is no unreliable narrator, guys. This is just a story that's been presented. Come on. It's like
Yeah.
it's like there's like the little lore thing, but there's an actual book presentation. You can't always just keep making that argument because it'll be like, then, like you said, what's the point?
Yeah, I get it. And I get also that characters inside the 41st millennium are all very biased towards their own faction or their own beliefs. Like Space Marines are never going to talk about chaos in any way positive. Like chaos Space Marines are never gonna, like say most of the time will not say anything, redeeming about the Emperor. Or if they do, it would be in a nostalgic kind of way, like, oh, the Great Crusade was glorious before the Emperor betrayed us, the Eldar, the Tau, everyone. And so, like, I see where the unreliable narrator comes from, and I can see how it can work and how it does work, but, it comes to a point where it can get a bit tiring, to be honest.
But I do have to ask you that I am curious as to what was your very first shot of Volga, that is the 40k setting, because if I recall correctly, it is through the game Space Brain. Is that right? Yes.
I think that a lot of us, a lot of the current fandom, like, got their first taste of, of Warhammer 40k via the game Space Marine.
That was my first experience too.
Yeah, that was mine as well. And it was funny because when I first played Space Marine, I had no goddamn idea of what the hell was going on. Like, I was like, I entered the game with no context about Warhammer 40k, so I'm like, why are there orcs in space, and why do they have rocket packs? Why the hell the blue guys are like 3 meters tall, and why are they are being called angels? Why is there like wait, is there magic now when when Nemrod shows up? And what the hell is the Codex Astartes? Like, I'm playing the game, but I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know what this is all about. I don't know what an Ultramarine is. I don't know what a Space Marine is. Nothing.
What the hell? Why is everyone British?
Yeah. Yeah, why is everyone British? Why does everything look like a cathedral?
Yeah.
And I simply left it at that. It was a fun game. I played it, and I just left it at that and move on. And like years later, I would actually, that was my first taste, but it wasn't my introduction. Well, it was, but it wasn't the thing from which I said, oh, I'm gonna look for more Warhammer stuff. My actual first taste was like, well, I was like browsing the internet. I
I was searching around the internet. Oh my god! I want to see it. So maybe while you were downloading. I'm sorry. I had to.
No problem.
Eldar feet. Hey, whoever suits your boat, man. I'm not going to shame you.
Well, I was like, and I run into one of Luton's first videos about 40K, and I'm like, 40K. Oh, that's right. That game that one time, like, and that like the game Space Marine comes back into my mind, and like I watch. It's one of Luton's first videos, like about the Warhammer 40K universe. And I am even more confused than I was before, because I was hoping to see about what are these Space Marines? What the hell are orcs and everything? And the first videos about that Lutin never did about Warhammer are centered on from the start happened from the start of the universe. So it's about
the very,
mainly
very
Necrons, like the War in Heaven, Necrons, the old ones, and the Eldar. Mm-hmm. So at first, then I am even more confused, and I'm like, wasn't this thing about like these huge super soldiers? Like, who the hell are all these people? Like, what's going on? But then I eventually reached the video about the Imperium event, and I'm like, okay, so there's more to this than that. So there's more to it than this. Okay, I get it now. And the rest is history. I bought my first novel because I found out that there were novels about it, and my first novel was Hell's Reach, which
excellent choice.
Explains a lot of things about why my favorite faction is the Black Templars, in case you haven't noticed by now.
It's very on the nose. Very on the nose.
It's very on the nose. And the rest is history. I just kept reading more books about it, and then I said, screw it. I don't care. This miniature thing looks awesome. I'm gonna look for it. I'm gonna look for a box of it, and I bought the Dark Imperium box. And
that's an awesome box. I actually bought
it is.
I actually bought that box after my first year at college, so that was like a little gift for myself, I think.
Oh my god, our Warhammer stories are very parallel. My Dark Imperium box, I bought it after my first year at college as well.
Awesome. But after my first year at college, I decided to get the Dark Imperium box as like a gift for myself for passing first year, because first year was pretty difficult, but I was able to pass. I needed something nice. Ooh, cool, new Space Marines.
Yeah, it was pretty much like that. Although for me, it was more involved. I had the luxury that I was kind of like, I was living in Mexico City at the time. Mm-hmm. And I think I've stated this before, like, there is a considerable community of wargaming in Latin America. Mm-hmm. But it is like if you, as someone from Canada or someone from the US or the UK, considers this hobby as something like very niche, like not something that everyone does. Well, here is super niche, like ridiculously niche. In my hometown, I'm most likely the only person that actually knows what Warhammer is, much less wargaming,
And in countries like China, it's non-existent.
Yeah, pretty much so. So I had to pretty much my hobby development years were my years living in Mexico City, because those types of hobbies, you're gonna find them on those kinds of cities, because those kinds of cities are so big that they kind of
they're kind of like a hive city, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, they're kind of like a hive city, but since the city is so big, that type of business would not fly on a small town like my hometown, but it will work on a big metropolitan city, because it's so populated that, believe me, there is some group of people that are gonna be interested in that hobby stuff of yours enough to like keep a hobby store afloat, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And, just a quick note, just in case someone tries to cancel me with that China comment. It's like with China's like censorship laws, good luck trying to get Warhammer into China Games Workshop, because you're not going to make business there with the governments that's there,
Well, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because
And
you heard the whole story, right? About how they're banning video games basically in China.
somewhat.
Yeah, they're doing that. They're like they're censoring video games to the point where it's like companies aren't going to make business there. Have you heard that?
Yeah. I think I've heard something like a while ago about children like kind of being only permitted to like play 1 hour
Yeah,
like
a week. Yeah,
day or a week. I don't remember. I don't remember how much.
but that's just like a quick comment, but not to diverse the topic of Warhammer at hand. The Dark Imperium box was really like an excellent box. Going back on that, like I've made my videos about why I like Primaris Marines, and I've done my tweets. Though I want to get your like input on what were your views when the whole Primaris stuff came out and stuff like the Death Guard. Like, what was your perspective on all this?
Okay, so I have a I kind of have a very mixed opinion on this, mostly because I, for one, understand. The more I dug into the lore, the more I understood why a lot of people were angry with the idea of Primaris Space Marines. I understood that. I understood that, and I understood like what were the issues and why they existed and why a lot of people were angry. And well,
maybe not angry,
but on the other,
more like annoyed. Yeah,
either annoyed or angry. And when I started getting into the lore, it was the end of 7th, and and my first ever Warhammer product that I actually bought, the first minis that I actually got was the Dark Imperium box set. And well, that's half Primaris Marines and half Death Guard. And in a way, like I understand where the anger comes from in the implications on for the compromises it does with the lore. But on the other hand, it's kind of like the only Warhammer I have ever known. So it's kind of difficult for me to be angry at it because I don't have like all these years of prior knowledge about the original Firstborn Astartes and this whole armies of them built and painted. So the Primaris Marines are the first Marines I ever painted. So were the Death Guard in that box set. So it's kind of like very difficult for me to actually hate Primaris stuff. As 8th edition went on, I kind of like got a bit more critical about Primaris because I was like, so I choose Black Templars as my favorite Space Marine army, and the Primaris didn't fit very well with the Templars. 8th edition had no new melee troops. The army was, by all intents and purposes, unplayable. And so it was kind of like, the more I looked at the old Space Marine models, the more I was like, these were actually really cool. They have all these Baroque and Gothic kind of details on their armors, and the Primaris have some of that, but a lot of them were really plain, and like I kind of understood it more. But when 9th edition rolled around and we started getting the the melee options for the Primaris, and eventually we got the refresh of the Black Templar unique units, I was like, oh, this is everything. This is all they had to do. Like, I'm very happy with the Black Templar refresh, because of the fact that they made the Primaris. They gave back to the Primaris Marines the Gothic, old-timey feel that the Firstborn had. And I think you said in a tweet of yours that they didn't make the Black Templars Primaris. They made the Primaris Black Templars.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what they did.
Yeah, and so like I still understand a bit of the people's reluctance of it, but the Templar refresh showed me that it can work very well. They just need to kind of like put some effort into making them look more imposing. Like um imagine Primaris Blood Angels with a more, of the Baroque
Mhm.
golden details that the Blood Angels love so much. Like
You
those
know,
could work if the
like sculpted armor, gold bits here and there, like golden ornaments. Yeah, golden
yeah.
ornaments of angels across their armor. That looks more like blood angels.
Yeah, that looks like more like Blood Angels, and
Because just painting them red doesn't do it, guys.
yeah, Gabriel Seth was right about that. Oh, the Primaris are
Yeah,
ultramarines in red armor.
yeah, he said that in the book. Yeah, that's basically how they viewed them, and that's something I felt was going to like dilute the themes of chapters, because it's like because for Space Marines, they're not just different colored Marines of Ultramarines. They have their own culture, they have their own unique look and all that. So I think it's a good thing that currently Games Workshop are taking a more exotic approach with these Marines, like how they did with the Black Templar stuff.
Yeah, and I'm very happy that they have. I definitely hope the other chapters get the same treatment, and honestly, I'm kind of happy also that a lot of the Xenos models and are getting refreshed. I actually like the previous Chaos refresh. It almost had me starting a Chaos army, to be honest. I actually liked it very much.
Yeah, the one from 8th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like to imagine during November when the Black Templar trailer came out, you were like that guy from the Return of Skywalker trailer who was crying.
Who the hell?
You know who I'm talking about, right? We all know the meme.
Yeah, I
like,
know.
Oh my god! Oh my god! It's happening!
I wasn't crying, but I got to my knees and praised the Emperor.
That sounded really dirty, but I'm not going to joke on that. Yeah, and it was really exciting to see all the new Black Templar stuff. Like, I was thinking they would either do Hubrecht or Grimaldus, but the fact they did both, that's very exciting.
The champion as well.
Yeah. And
yeah, I was only expecting like a hero model, because I was when Faith and Fury, the supplement in 8th edition, came around, I was disappointed that most of the chapters got at least a Primaris, character.
yeah.
And like Black Templars got none of that, so I was kind of like very like, I was like, are we getting retcon or something?
Yeah, I made a whole video about that, guys. Like, come on, don't blue ball me.
But no, yeah, I'm very happy. I'm very satisfied, and I already got my my Templars inner circle here, like waiting for me to finish making a good enough color scheme for them, and for me to take the brush to them.
Yeah, and going on that whole topic of Xenos factions, I think 9th edition so far has been very, very good at updating the Xenos factions.
Yes, I am honestly, the only reason I haven't gotten a Xenos army is mostly because lack of money. So if I'm gonna buy an army, the one that I was gonna focus on buying was my favorite one, but I'm on the fence about starting. I don't know if Orcs army or a Necrons army, and with the apparent rumors that rumors, quotations, because they're pretty much confirmed.
It is basically confirmed, yeah.
That the Eldar are finally gonna get their refresh, or at least part of their refresh.
Part 1 to the refresh, I think.
Part 1, yeah. I'm kind of like holding my breath to see if are these gonna look at least are these gonna be good. Or am I going to like them? Maybe I will, and maybe I would say, you know what? Let's get an elder army. You know, I have been very vocal about the fact that I find the elf factions incredibly annoying, so I kind of like bias against them. But hey, if the models are good looking enough, that may change my mind, you know?
Yeah, and about the whole Xenos stuff is like seeing all the new Necrons was really cool. Seeing all the new orcs was pretty cool. Even stuff that came out for them during 8th edition for orcs, I mean.
Yeah, Gaskell's model is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to buy it. The Silent King came back, and a couple of years ago, most people would have
no one would think
that.
that. No one would think that.
Yeah, inconceivable, inconceivable.
I don't think it means what you think it means. But yeah, and if you were to go back to tell someone that Sisters About we're going to get stuff, 2 waves of new stuff, who do you think would believe you?
You probably get laughed at.
Because if you think that the Eldar got no new stuff, the Sisters got no, even less, basically nothing.
They were a dead army by all intents and purposes.
It's like, at least with the Eldar, at least they got a codex. The Sisters were stuck to digital.
Yeah. And go ahead. No.
Yeah, it's like, and if I'm correct, most of these sister stuff were metal. And even though it's kind of like that with the Eldar, there is plastic and fine cast here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Sisters of Battle can be refreshed and made new like a rising phoenix, then the Eldar, you know, a faction that is kind of like described as being phoenix-like, and they have units and characters named with a phoenix, they are going to be that born-again phoenix for 9th edition.
Yeah, definitely they will. Like, and when
even
the Eldar...
and even before 9th... So sorry, but even before 9th edition, we got stuff like Howling Banshees and Jane Czar, so that was a brush of exposure, or a brush of new stuff that would be approaching.
Yes, I definitely feel like I really do hope that their refresh is satisfying, and that we will finally get to see non-metal Eldar models on the table. Yeah. And after they get refreshed, who else needs a refresh? The Tyranids, I think, right? They're the last ones. The Tyranids and the Tau. Well,
here's the thing.
Stuff is, yeah.
Sorry, here's the thing. For something like Tyranids, I don't think they're that ancient of an army, or I think their models still hold up considering their roles. Like, I wouldn't mind if maybe they did something to refresh them, but I don't think they're all as people are trying to portray them as, because I think their models have aged better than Eldar. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But for something like Tau, here's the thing. They got more special treatment than almost any other Xenos factions, I think, because they got new stuff during 7th edition, or I think it was 6th edition. They got a whole fresh of new stuff. They got their crisis suits, their broadsides, their pathfinders. They were given new models and refresh models, because I think the pathfinders were new at that time, because before then it was just fire warriors. And we even got a new Farsight model at that time, and even though he was fine cast, he was a new model, because his original model was basically just a red crisis suit. But his quote unquote new fine cast model gave him his own look. It gave him the look where it's like, okay, that's Commander Farsight. And, you know, we were even given stuff like Ghost Kills and the Riptide. We were given the Storm Surge. Storm Surge, I think, came out during 7th edition. So out of all the Xenos factions, these guys were probably favored in my opinion. Yeah, and we got a new Shao Sun model, and pretty soon we're going to get a new Dark Strider model. I think that's his name, Dark Strider. He's going to come out during early January, I believe. So even though he's probably a character, And we're going to get like upgraded sprues for the Pathfinders. They're not given a whole new wave of stuff, but then again, it's not really needed, I think.
Yeah, I can take where you're coming from. With the Tyranids, I feel like, well, I do think like you said, most of their models really hold up. They could use a couple of new units. I mean, with the whole theme that the Tyranids are this
ever evolving race,
evolving race of that constantly evolves and creates new life forms. I think they could probably get creative with a couple of new units, new monsters for Nits players to use, because I do feel like when the premise of the whole army is that they eat, they adapt, they evolve, that you kind of like want to constantly see like new stuff for the Nits,
Yeah, I can see that. And looking back on it, there is some stuff they could do to, freshen up the range a bit. Like with this one faction, I think it's called the Tyranid Guard, where their premise is that they're Tyranids who have consumed or their genes have been adapted by Space Marine gene seed. So they're like hulking Space Marine Tyranids, basically. So I think what would be cool is that maybe most likely there are Hive fleets that have consumed Primaris chapters. So as a way to make these guards even bigger, they're like these Primaris Tyranid guards,
Mm-hmm. Another cool one could be like, what are those Tyranids that are like psychic artillery? Zoanthropes, I think their name. The ones that are I think they're from consumed Eldar. Biomass. With the opening of the Great Rift, you think that the Tyranids will not sort of like adapt to a new environmental condition, so to speak?
Yeah, exactly. And also going back on the whole Tau topic, because as someone who is a fan of the Tau range, I think, because today was like the Black Library showcasing and all that, I think, and like maybe next year or maybe most likely 2023, a 2-year gap, because last year, or I think it was this year, where we were given Farsight's new book, his second book at least, or I think that was last year. But anyways, I think by his third book, I think that's when we're going to get a new Farsight model. Because of what I noticed is that when a character has a book trilogy, when a third book comes out, there's a new model of him. We see this with characters like Fabius Bile and Mephiston when their third books came out. So I think that's going to be the same thing with Farsight when his third book comes out.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. It is a good theory. Well, a good prediction on a possible new Farsight model.
Yeah, and even though I would have maybe liked Farsight getting a model for 9th edition when the Tau Codex comes out, I can understand why Games Workshop might do something like postpone the idea, because having a way where it's like 2 birds with 1 stone, a new Farsight book along with this new model.
Yeah. I can see it.
I think something like that would like really excite Tau fans like me.
Yeah, I think, like the Tau models that I like the most are their vehicles. And since the Tau are one of the few races in the entire galaxy that actually still innovate, or at least innovate at a fast pace, like I think it would be interesting to get some new crisis suits, some like new variants of it. I think that would be like a very, very, very interesting concept. Also, a bit more representation for the other races of the Tau. Yeah, for the other races of the Tau Empire.
That's stuff they need. Like, I would like to see more like variant of crew, because they are also the species that they evolve with the creatures they consume. So it would be interesting to see like more variants of crew. But anyways, I think I'll ask you this question because you are like a huge Black Templar fan and the whole topic of Space Marine. And that is something I think it's about time I ask you. What are your thoughts on Space Marine 2?
Oh, I am honestly kind of like shocked that we are getting that. Honestly, I uh, when like when I saw the trailer, at first I thought someone was trolling us because I was like, come on, there was never going to be Space Marine 2. Like, get over it. It hurts, but it must be, but we must move on. We're never going to get it. Like, Titus just went up to the Inquisitor ship and never came back. And I will never get an explanation on why the Inquisitor was being escorted by Black Templars, as the Black Templars hate the Inquisition. But okay. So I was like I was kind of like over it. I was over Space Marine 2 and that it was never gonna come out, and here we are.
I basically cheered when I saw that thumbnail on YouTube, Space Marine 2. I was like, oh my god.
I rubbed my eyes. Like I was like kind of like I'm seeing stuff. This must be like a fan trailer, a theory trailer.
Yeah.
The first thing I was I'm getting excited for nothing, and nope, here we are. Titus got demoted, or so it appears, or so it seems.
But out of all the fates, that's like the least of his problems. Like at least considering he was given to the Inquisition, I'm surprised he was able to survive through that. So at least he survived, but at what cost? But then again, the cost is him being just lieutenant. He can go back to being a captain pretty quickly, considering who he is.
Yeah. And also, well, Titus is a Primaris now, which means he lived through the entirety of the Rising Storm events, in some way at least. And it is strange because if I remember correctly, some of the originally Space Marine took place during the 40th millennium, not the 41st. Or at least I thought it did. I don't know where I heard that. But, well, this is Warhammer 40k. There are very easy ways to get that fixed. You just have to get him lost in the world for a millennium, and that's it.
I think it took place in Millennium 41, and Space Marines are long living, and considering his, the service studs that are on his head, his services has been long.
Yeah.
And
no, that's true.
But both from what we see from the trailer of how he has that chain around his arm, people are saying that it's kind of like the Black Templars, how they chain their weapons to themselves, But I think that's like a sign that he was from the Death Watch, because you don't need to necessarily have the pauldron to be a formal member of the Death Watch. I think a Marine will choose something like a badge, or in this case, like for Titus, a chain, kind of like a rosary,
Yeah. In fact, if I remember correctly, you can actually see what appears to be like a inquisitorial rosette hanging from the chain. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's an indication that he served for Death Watch for a bit, and when he was brought back into the chapter, they turned him to a Primaris, because a character like him, kind of like with the character Uriel, the 4th Company captain.
Yeah.
Those are big named characters to become Primaris. So I think it makes sense for him to become Primaris, and I actually made a whole video about that. If they were to continue Titus' story, maybe they'll do something like turn him into Primaris. So at least with something like that, I was right. I was right in your prediction.
Yeah. Point for Lewis.
And of how skilled he was of fighting that Tyranid warrior, I think it does indicate that that in his time in the Death Watch, he fought some creatures like Tyranids, and he got the experience on how to deal with them.
Yes. I actually, a wish I have for the game is the Tyranids, they kind of know how to program the Tyranids, so fighting them will not simply be the same as fighting the orcs
Oh yeah.
In the first one. What do I mean by this? Both the orcs and the Tyranids in lore and generally in game are horde armies. They
Yeah.
both fight like hordes. They use weight of numbers as the backbone of their battle strategy.
Mhm.
But it's different. Like the orcs pretty much are unrelenting, explosive violence and savagery, and the Tyranids are a swarm. They fight in a sort of synchronicity with each other, and the good old strategy of kill the big ones, the synaptic creatures, and the little ones will get confused and will be easy pickings.
Yeah.
I think we saw a bit of that in the trailer where after Titus kills the Tyranid warrior, they're termagants or hormigons.
Termagants. They're
Scatter.
termagants.
They're termagants, right? They scatter.
Mhm.
I don't know if you noticed after
I
he
noticed.
kills the Tyranid. Yeah. So I hope that we will actually see some of that and some of that reflected in gameplay. So we're getting swarmed by termagants, and there's a Tyranid warrior. We kill the Tyranid warrior, and the termagants can get confused. But then then a hive tyrant shows up, and so killing the. So the presence of them buffs the rest of the fodder Tyranids. So I hope to see that reflected in actual gameplay.
And for what I'm hoping for Space Marine 2 is that I'm definitely hoping we get more exciting boss fights, because of one of the minor nitpicks I had with the first game was that the bosses weren't that exciting, especially the final boss. So I'm hoping for Space Marine 2 is that maybe we can have proper boss fights. Like I'm hoping for for game 2, I'm hoping we do things like fight a Tyranid lictor, we fight a hive tyrant, maybe even fight like a patriarch if there's a gene stealer cult, depending on what the story is, maybe even a brood lord. I want more exciting bosses. That's what I'm hoping for.
That could be a good idea for them to have more enemy variety.
Mm-hmm.
Either the Space Marine 2 team already has some insight on future Tyranid releases, and so they will put them in game because they're gonna get models anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the trailer kind of confirmed that we will eventually be getting jump packs for Primaris Space Marines because Titus is using one.
Yeah, I was actually wondering about that. I was wondering if that was something the Reavers were using, or if that's something I think they're called infiltrators, the Space Marines that kind of look like astronauts. But
I think they're Inceptors. I think they are.
Inceptors, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it's either him using like a Inceptor kind of suit, but if what you heard is true, I think that's one hell of a promotion for models, I think.
Yeah. And also, if they don't do that, they could actually use the Gene Stealer cults to give some enemy variety. Yeah, the Tyranid's already invading, but the Gene Stealer cult hasn't joined with their gods yet. So, you get tired, you want to add some variety? Instead of Termagants swarming you, like the Gene Stealer cult starts shooting at you with their, ramshackle stolen weapons and tanks, instead of just simply, Termagant swarm, Termagant swarm, Termagant swarm.
Kind of like with the orcs, but at least with Space Marine 1, they did change up the enemy variety later on. Like we got to fight things like demons, chaos cultists, chaos Space Marines. Mm-hmm. I think they kind of knew when fighting orcs became like almost looking the same. So at least they started spicing up the enemies later in the game.
Yeah.
And about this whole topic too of from what we hear now and again about that story that they're going to do, considering it's been like 10 years, I can imagine that the original script would change up a bit. Because they had their original idea for Space Marine 1 and Space Marine 2 and Space Marine 3. Yet I think during the 10 years, and because they want to like adapt with the lore or with Marn lore, they were like, okay, how about we try doing this direction, but have the same idea with our original script. But then again, the original script is more of a guideline rather than our set path, because we can always adapt or change up the story when we have more cool ideas that can make the character cool.
Much like the Codex Astartes.
Yeah. There has to be a interaction of Titus and Leandros in the game. There has to be.
I want Leandros to have gone full heretic so we can actually have an excuse to kill him in game. Some people say to me like, "Oh, how about a black shield? How about he turns into a black shield? Or maybe how about, well, since there are Primaris Marines, it means that either Titus has met, Gilliman, or at least he has seen the impact of him returning." But it would be like pretty funny also to have like Leandros chastised by Gilliman. That's even if Leandros has lived this long,
And what I think would be funny is that Titus has become a Primaris, but Leandros hasn't. And that's because he's still a low-ranking Space Marine because of his refusal to adapt or his refusal to like change, and he's always by the book. I don't think that gets him far into the ranking. So I'm thinking if he were to meet Titus, he would either be a low-ranking sergeant or he would still be a normal meat marine.
Yeah. In a universe like 40K, which is literally built on ironic tragedy, so to speak. Mm-hmm. One of the funniest ones, I think, like Gilliman wrote the Codex Astartes as a guideline, and his own sons took it as a literal rule book, while technically the chapters that actually dedicate themselves the most to using it as a guideline and as a general guideline are ironically the Space Wolves and the Black Templars.
Yeah.
And that's delicious. And that the irony is delicious.
And through tweets from sorry about that. And through tweets from some mutuals of mine on Twitter, and well, actually mutuals of ours, the director, the game director of the game, has actually been answering some questions about gameplay. Yeah. And like the gameplay that we see at the end of the trailer is real gameplay.
Awesome. Yes.
It's not a glorified trailer. It's what you see, it's what's going to be happening. Or at least it's the early stage of the game. So you can only imagine what the finished product will be like.
Praise the Emperor. Thank you. I mean, games, movies, TV series, these couple of years have been a parade of one disappointment after another. So I honestly, my sympathies to the people working on this game, because the expectations for Space Marine 2 are
hot. Wait.
Yeah.
I think people are trying to set this on a tightrope, and it's like, okay, guys, just calm down. It's just a trailer so far.
Yeah, I know, but
I think
at the same time, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, it's like I think people are trying to get wild up over something that hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, pretty much. Although, to be fair, like people are jaded. Like I said, these couple of years, pretty much all types of media have been like a parade of disappointment, one after the other. So, like I agree with your sentiment of people need to calm down, give people the developers, give them the benefit of the doubt, and all of that. I'm in full agreement. But at the same time, I can see that people are simply completely jaded by this point. Like there's been so many disappointments these past couple of years that it's almost hilarious even.
Yeah, I think ever since the whole, I can't say the word because YouTube will be upset, but we all know what I'm talking about. I think ever since that this whole pandemic happened, I think people have been getting blackpilled. So with something like Space Marine 2, it was like a brush of happiness almost, because it's something that we didn't expect to happen. And with the presentation, I think people are starting to realize why they like Warhammer again. And it's because of a game like Space Marine, which is probably how most people got into a saying like 40K. So the fact that this is happening, it's like, yes, people probably wish they had the game right now, but here's the thing: in another timeline, this is probably not even happening. In like an alternate timeline, I mean, but at least in this timeline, it's happening.
Yeah, and I am very happy that it is. So, honestly, I feel like for a moment there, the entire fandom was kind of like, like pre-heresy Imperium, completely unified. And yeah, I kind of like feel like everyone like was happy and satisfied and excited for something, for a change, and that's pretty refreshing to see. Honestly, though, my biggest piece of advice I can give to someone that feels like, kind of tired, that in the sense that they don't seem to remember why they like this hobby anymore: get off of social media. And get off of social media, especially Twitter, and like read one of the books, play one of the games, paint some models. Hell, I honestly, amidst the recent drama that has happened in the community, ironically, it has been the I have hobbied the most recently that I have done in a long time. I have painted the most. I have used the most amount of time. Sorry, I got lost there.
No problem.
So I have painted, actually painted one of my models for the longest time, even amidst this drama, simply because I decided that I have spent too much time and money on this. I actually like it very much. No one else is going to ruin it for me. No one is going to tell me how to interpret or how to read anything. That's going to be up to me, and I'm going to turn off my notifications and actually paint something. And I have actually enjoyed it I have enjoyed it more than I have in a while, to be honest, thanks to that. So that's a recommendation I give to anyone that's kind of feeling like, they don't remember why they like Warhammer anymore.
I think there's been like two negative reactions to people over Space Marine 2. The people who are like black-pilled and are assuming the worst. But the other like negative feedback would have been like the people who do the whole, oh, Space Marines aren't meant to be heroes. Why are you lionizing them? Don't you know they're evil, guys? Why are you trying to market fascists to us? Don't you know how harmful, and don't you know you're normalizing this? And it's like, it's
Space Marines.
It's fiction, guys. Don't take it too it's fiction, dude. Calm down.
I'm gonna use a phrase that mutual of ours once used to explain this whole situation. Yeah. The Space Marines are heroes in the same way Alexander the Great is a hero. Alexander the Great is the hero of the Greeks and the Macedonians, but is not the hero of the Persians.
Exactly.
Same thing. Space Marines are the heroes of the Imperium. They're not the heroes of the Xenos or of Chaos.
And for saying in which Games Workshop has never called fascists, or at least within their blog ever since the whole drama, they didn't use the word fascist, but everyone assumed they did, basically. Or I mean, where basically the people went, you see, it is a satire of fascism. They said it. They say it was satire. They didn't say fascist. Just because the Imperium of Man is grim and dark, it doesn't mean it's fascist. At least they said it's all of the worst regimes you can think of turned to 11. That's how most people would describe the Imperium of Man.
I always stood by my opinion that the Imperium of Man is an amalgamation of, all of humanity's type of governments and civilizations.
Yeah.
With all their negative traits dialed up to 20, pretty much. That's how I always seen it.
Yeah, Games Workshop.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, and it's like Games Workshop basically said something along the lines of that. They didn't say fascist, but I'm just going to say the Warhammer community. They had the conception that, they did say it, but they didn't. You guys have this like weird interpretation, and it's like, and I hear people even use the argument that it's normalizing it, and it's like, no.
Come on.
We heard that with politicians describing Call of Duty, Halo, Grand Theft Auto, rock and roll music. Don't you become an aging boomer, guys? Come on.
Yes, most definitely.
Stop having fun. You're not meant to have fun. Well, if you're not having fun with this hobby, maybe that's your fault.
Yeah, most definitely. I also have, like I said, I agree with that. I mostly agree with that. And at the end of the day, I felt that entire statement was like,
it was politician talk. It was basically politician talk.
It was PR talk. It said something without saying much of anything, really.
It's what a politician would say when they get in trouble over a photo in like them in high school.
Yeah,
I would know because I have politicians who are like that all the time.
Yes, I know.
No. It's like, I am sorry. I should have known better. I am going to make sure it never happens again. I am sorry for the community who I've hurt. It's like,
it was 20 years ago.
It's politician talk.
Yeah, I know. And it's a company. It's PR company talk. Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't actually take it very seriously, to be honest.
It's like Games Workshop has gone full mask off ever since the whole animation thing. So
yes.
It's like, they are not your friends, guys. Do not try to be friends with the corporation. It's not a person, it's a logo.
Yeah, like if you like considering that entire debacle that happened with the whole Warhammer Plus and the animation stuff. Yeah. Like, do you actually think that I am going to listen to you moralizing to me? That's how I interpret. Do you actually think that?
Yeah.
That it's anything like, of that, anything of those lines that you tell to me is actually going to garner any reaction from me, that it's not negative or at least skeptic?
It's like, they killed their fan animators for something like Hammer and Bolter. They killed something like Astartes for like really, really cheap looking animation.
And the tragedy of all of this is a lot of the animation studios that they brought in are actually pretty talented. Like, I haven't watched Angels of Death because I do not have Warhammer Plus, but most people seem to like it very much, and that's honestly great and all, and that's awesome. Like, Angels of Death is done by Richard Boylan. He was the guy that made the Hell's Reach animation, and
like that looks good. That has better quality than Hammer and Bolter. Like, I would love something like watch Hammer and Bolter, but I would rather keep my YouTube channel than support a shitty practice. So even though I'm not going to be watching Angels of Death, I want to keep my channel in the next 10 years. So I'm not going to support a shitty corporate decision. It's like, I'm going, in words of James Rolfe, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm not going to go see it.
Yeah. To be honest, like this whole copyright situation, not only with Games Workshop, but in general, like kind of like puts like YouTubers and content creators in a situation they kind of have to like walk a minefield, make sure they, like they are always doing revisions of everything they're going to say or do in their videos, because now you never know from where angle the copyright hammer is going to come,
Yeah, you can imagine in my position when this whole thing was happening. You can imagine how black-pilled I was.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, well, I might as well go out with some cringe and some memes.
Nah, man, do not let some idiot decisions ruin things for you.
Oh, it didn't, but I don't know. I think I see the whole mask slip off, or I've known that mask is going to slip off eventually, where it's like, what? It's like, you guys should have known better. I don't understand why you're acting as if they betrayed you. They're not your friend.
Yeah. I actually said this on a tweet recently. Love the franchise, distrust the corporation. That's the exact thing I do every time Disney does something. Because if there's a larger example of the gigantic, malignant megacorp, then it's Disney. So that doesn't mean that I'm not going to watch anything Disney related, but I will definitely will not eat up everything they say. If that means that I will have to eat up the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which is one of the reasons I came to Warhammer in the first place, because I was heartbroken after The Last Jedi.
Yeah. Other than that, I think we've reached a good point where I can actually ask you some questions that's been asked of us. If you think you're all good for that.
Yeah, shoot.
Hey, Hubrecht, what's your thoughts on a lizardman from fantasy? They're like the Aztecs. What is your favorite faction from the lizardmen? I'm thinking for here, maybe he's saying something like, what's your favorite faction from fantasy? That's what I'm thinking. But yeah, what's your views on the lizardmen?
I like the lizardmen. I think they're a pretty cool concept. I mean, it's kind of pretty difficult to make dinosaurs that are Aztecs that ride other dinosaurs that use magic. That it's pretty difficult to make that boring, And the whole Saurian reptile lizard thing goes very well with them, because like it's one of the most striking, some of the most striking symbols of pre-Hispanic Mesoamerican civilizations are, the serpents, one of the main gods of the Nahuatl, which is the culture group the Aztecs belong to, is like Quetzalcoatl, which is kind of like a weird winged serpent of the wind, that sort of thing, which is pretty much Sotek. That's what Sotek is in a way. The god of the lizardmen. I like them. I would start an army of them. Maybe. My main annoyance with them, it's mostly that's something more of a personal peeve, because I normally get annoyed with how Aztec and pre-Hispanic stuff gets portrayed on media normally. Because I kind of have like a bit of a chip on my shoulder, thanks to like considering where I grew up. I kind of have I have a bit of a resentment towards the Aztecs for the way they're portrayed by the Mexican government. Like they're a very impressive civilization. They have a lot of very impressive and beautiful stuff. So much so that even the conquistadors were the biggest fans of the Aztecs. They were enemies, but they were like, oh, their civilization is magnificent, that they constantly speak of that. but I always get annoyed to how they are portrayed. Like, there are people, I have met people that actually think that the pyramids of the Aztecs actually have the capacity for space flight. I wish I was joking.
And the whole thing about human sacrifices is pretty hard to ignore.
Yeah. I mean, someone who studies history has to put things into its context, right?
Yeah.
It is factually wrong to put, modern values and modern ethics in past events. I said this in our, in the last church video. But people often want to victimize the Aztecs too much, even ignoring the fact that their neighbors hated them enough to make an alliance with the Castilians, even though for them the Castilians were pretty much to them what aliens would be to us. At least at that point in time. So, and even considering that most of pre-Hispanic civilizations practiced human sacrifice as well, and even ignoring that part, like it's kind of like hilarious in a way that like people always want to talk about, but imperial oppression and whatever, when the Aztecs were exactly that. They were an empire that subjugated its neighbors as well. So
empires.
I like the Lizardmen. Oh, sorry, what?
Sorry, empires aren't built without, a notion of bodies, basically.
Yeah,
they aren't bought through like trade or with agreements. They are brought in by war. And the difference is that one empire didn't have the technology as the other did. But if they did, I think they would have been a lot more maybe not a lot more wrathful, but I think on the same tier. If the Aztecs had the technology or stuff like that as the Spanish did, or as the old world.
Yeah. And definitely, and I feel like, this is a whole other subject, so I'm not going to talk about it much. But I like the Lizardmen. I like their style. I like they're cool, and I like them. But that kind of pet peeve, it's very difficult for me to forget. Also, I feel like the Lizardmen, even though the Aztec theme fits the Lizardmen very, very well, I feel like in a way they kind of robbed us of being able to add the Aztec theme to corn stuff. Yes. Because the god of the Aztecs, the main god of the patron of the Aztecs, a god called Huitzilopochtli, is the closest thing you get to real life corn worship by all intents and purposes. So you tell me it wouldn't be awesome to see some, Chaos Warriors or Chaos Space Marines that are kind of sort of Aztec themed.
But we actually do have something like that with Rainbow Warriors within the fan base. The fan base have actually given them a sort of Aztec theme. So I was thinking with my interpretation, if I got to play around with like the Rainbow Warriors, they would be like these coordinate Aztec kind of chapter,
Okay, that could work.
Maybe not chapter, but renegade chapter. Like they're a chapter that's landed on this like exotic South American forest world almost, and being on this world, they've been like exposed to like this influence of corn, and that's what got them and that's what got them wild up into becoming these sort of Aztec Marines. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that could work actually. I saw a fan art recently about the concept for a kind of more overtly Aztec-ish sort of space marine. Imagine a corn berserker, but instead of the spikes and the blood runes, they have all these serpent and sun-like Aztec carvings. It actually, and some feathers in his armor. It actually looked pretty cool. So, well, to summarize, I like the Lizardmen. I just have a pet peeve with. I have a
annoyance,
personal
almost.
resentment with their whole the origin of their theme. That's all.
And here's the thing, guys. Not all of Mexico was the Aztec Empire. Just saying.
Yeah, not all of Mexico was the Aztec Empire. Yeah.
I think they're cool. I think they have a little fun theme going on. And I always thought the whole like dinosaur theme was, because of the asteroid that landed near the coast of Mexico. I always thought it was in relation to that. But yeah, with Andrew,
it could be both. It could be both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be both.
And yes, we all know that dinosaurs aren't serpents, guys. We all know. Shut up about it. Don't go on the comments like, actually, they're just shut up. But anyways, on and onwards, I have a couple questions for you both. Number one, your dream 40K novel. What would it be about, and who would you want to write it?
Oh, that's a very big question. Okay, so I'm going to like put some like criteria on this, in the sense that I cannot say like it's a novel where my favorite faction solves everything and they all win. The end. I would truly like to see more novels in which famous members of the Space Marines, meaning all Space Marines, traitors and loyalists, interact, because I feel there's actually very little of that at least in more modern 40K. Like you do not see how Calgar fought Abaddon in Vigilus. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you like to see that sort of thing novelized, not only in the lore book, campaign book, but novelized? Wouldn't you like to see that?
I would, yeah.
Yeah. I would love a book about Hubrecht, because as much as I love Grimaldus, I feel like Hubrecht is one of the most visually recognizable, Space Marine chapter masters. And they don't actually do much with him. Like, he only has like short stories to his name. Like Grimaldus has at least he has an entire novel to him, but Hubrecht doesn't have that sort of thing. I went to see Hubrecht beat Emotech's ass again. Like, Necrons fans tend to forget that there's Emotech 1, Hubrecht 1 on that, on that matchup. They always bring like, a hand, but they tend to forget that the inevitable conqueror, Emotech's ship went boom.
Yeah.
I would actually love to see that sort of Black Templar novel against World Eaters, because hinging on all on the thing that Sigismund and Karn were like best friends before the heresy. I would actually love to see that.
Were they? I didn't think it was alive during that time.
No, like back in the Great Crusade era, Karn the Betrayer, well, previously Karn the Bloody, and Sigismund were sort of like
I get now.
Sparring partner. So kind of like building from that. Sigismund is dead. But
yeah.
But still, kind of like the Black Templars are sort of like they're there as standing for Sigismund because he's their founder after all.
Yeah, I get. Yeah,
I would actually like to see also the Inari continue their plotline, because if I recall correctly, the whole thing with the Crone Swords got nipped in the butt pretty much.
It did, and I think the writer said they stopped. I think they put a pause on doing a third book because the other two weren't doing so well in sales. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah,
that's unfortunate, but like you said, I hope they do stuff like continue United's story and do something for Hubrecht, because if he's like a very recognizable character, but there's no like big book about him, then that's something I think Black Library needs to, start doing.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of do, and I kind of like the little rivalry they have between him and Imhotep, because Imhotep is kind of like the 40k version of Cetra from fantasy in a way. So it's kind of like this thing where Imhotep sort of like honor-ish. He has kind of like his own code of honor, which it's like perfect in the when dealing with the Templars, because the Templars are all about that as well, all about personal honor. I will honestly feel like that would be very interesting to see. But that answer's predictable for me, because of course I'm gonna say something about the Black Templars.
I think for me, I think I would actually like to see a book on Lilith from the Dark Eldar. And because I found her to be an interesting character, and I was wondering if there's like some kind of book about her, because I wanted to read more about her. And Jet Black Raider actually tweeted to me saying that, sorry, there is no book. There is a Dark Eldar book series where she's mentioned and has like a role, but there is no like book or audio drama about her. So
yeah, that's strange, isn't it? It's kind of a similar situation with Hubrecht. We're talking about one of the most iconic and recognizable characters of a faction, and strangely enough, we do not have any actual book written about them from either their perspective or at least generally starting them, and that's actually pretty weird when you actually think about it. I think does Vecht have anything?
I don't think so. Like, there's a short story, but there's no like book on him. There's not even a model.
Wouldn't it be awesome to have like a couple of novels where about Vecht, starting from the bottom of Comora and rising to be the Overlord? That would be pretty awesome.
It would be, and if they did something like a Lilith book, I would like to see something like we see flashbacks of her in her early years, like her as a Dark Eldar witch. That's what they call it, because Succubus is like the leader of a witch, basically. Mm-hmm. I would like to see
her rookie years.
Exactly, like, but that's not like the meat and potatoes of the story. The meat and potatoes of the story is her current, like, what he's doing now. But I like to see like flashbacks here and there, kind of like with the Farsight books, because we see him in his modern, or quote unquote modern career, but we also see bits and pieces on how he was in his early years when he was younger, when he was being trained with Commander Puretide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, now that you mention it, for example, Hubrecht's own story about his beginnings, in the chapter and his rise to chapter master, well, High Marshal, are kind of like are actually sort of explored, but like I said, it's either only on short stories or in general lore book, not in like novel format. And I feel like that kind of journey would be like, it's a journey that I would like to see from the character's own perspective in a novelized form. Also, who would write it? I would actually like Aram Dembski Bowding to write it, mostly because he's one of my favorite authors from the Black Library. But, well, he's the author of Hell's Reach, and I feel like he, despite being the biggest Chaos fanboy there is, ironically enough, he kind of like captured the Templars very well, who are like the most loyal of all loyalist Space Marine chapters.
He did a very good job in that story, and like you said, he would be famed for something like this project.
Who would you choose to write that Lilith story?
I think I have two options. I think Gav Thorpe, he was writing the Inari story, so I think someone like him would do something pretty interesting with the character. Yeah, at the same time, I think Phil Kelly has done such a good job on the Tau factions of the books I've read of him. So I would be interested to see that kind of like interesting take on a character like Farsight also be done on a character like Lilith. I like to see something like that.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. Yeah, it would be a pretty good idea.
And this is actually this is another question about from the same person because he asked 3 questions actually. But this question,
I know who you are. I
Yeah.
know who you are, Badger.
but this question is actually towards me. Jarvis, would you ever make videos on your other homebrews, say High Fleet Freya? I think I know what he's referencing to, considering I did those Shaoshan Enclaves videos, and I made a Shaoshan Enclaves mini force, with models. Here's the thing. I didn't make the Shaoshan Enclaves, then make the videos. What I did was that I made a alternate timeline scenario with the Shaoshan videos, and out of it came what I would call the Shaoshan Enclaves. And so from that, I would then make a homebrew mini model force. I didn't make a customizable homebrew faction, then decide to make a video of it. That's not how it went. So for something like High Fleet Freya, there is no alternate timeline scenario I would have made to create something like that. Because again, for Shaosun, I made the video, then made the model faction. So if I were to do something like make a homebrew video about my own army, my own homebrew army, I think I would have to do it like a lore video or present it differently from how I did lore videos at the time, because again, with something like Shaosun, it was an alternate timeline scenario. And from that, I was able to make a proper homebrew army. That's not really the same with something like my Tyranids, for example, unfortunately.
Have you painted anything about... Have you painted any models in your homebrew High Fleet Freya?
Oh yeah, I have. I've shown models in the past before.
Yeah, okay.
I think it would be interesting if I were to do something like homebrew lore videos. I think that'd be something I'll take note on trying to do maybe down the line. But as for now, that's not really my main attention, so to say, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Anyways, on and onwards, I think. Hubrecht, my friend and brother, why are the Dark Angels best knights?
Shut the hell up, Badger. The Dark Angels barely act as knight.
They have a Knights of a Round Table theme going on. Come on.
But the Dark Angels use dishonorable and devious, duplicitous tactics that are unbecoming of a true knight. Therefore, they barely qualified as such. We all know who the real knights of the Emperor are. You know it, I know it. He knows it too. He just wants to troll.
And
there's your answer, Badger.
And they are basically loyalist Chaos Marines. So,
but the meme of the the Alpha Legionnaire and the Dark Angel of one is a loyalist, the other one's a heretic. Guess which one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Dark Angels are heretics. How creative how creative. But I don't care. Dark Angels are not true knights. Black Templars are true knights.
But another question here for you, Hubrecht, is that what is your favorite 4K novel that isn't Hell's Reach?
Okay, that's a very good way of putting the question, because I would have answered Hell's Reach in an instant. I am that predictable.
Yeah.
But okay, so I actually consider this, and I'm usually very bad at picking favorites, because for me to pick a favorite, I have to like something very, very much over the rest. So I normally have a hard time picking favorite of anything.
Mm-hmm.
But as to what I enjoyed that is in Hell's Reach, what I enjoyed the most, it's probably a tie between either Dante's novel,
mm-hmm.
And Watchers of the Throne.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I like those two very much. Dante, I particularly sticks in my head because it is very personal. It is a 40K book about a Space Marine chapter master, one of the most recognizable ones, Commander Dante, that barely has any actual fighting in it.
Yeah.
It actually has very few fighting in it. It's more about Dante's thoughts, his reflection on his life, and where he has, the path he has walked as a Space Marine, and the current state of the Imperium. Happens right before Gathering Storm. So it is a very, very good novel. If you're not sold on the Blood Angels, that novel maybe will. That's all I'm saying. I liked it for that, personal touch. For that personal touch with Commander Dante. As for Watchers of the Throne, I like the whole premise of the novel is kind of divided in three perspectives. One is a custodian, one is a Sister of Silence, and the other is actually the chancellor of the High Lords of Terra. Like, he's not a High Lord of Terra, but he works directly for them. So it's kind of interesting to see the Imperium from the perspective of someone that's that high on the totem pole of imperial bureaucracy that isn't a Space Marine or an Inquisitor.
When are you Texas bound?
I don't know if I'm Texas bound. But I have to get a good ladder to, jump. I have to get either a very good ladder or a siege tower for me to deal with the wall. Just saying.
Okay, then, yeah. Let me see.
I had to say that. I had to.
I know. I was going to say it, but all right. Here's one that might annoy you, but do you like beans?
I love beans. I just simply do not like when English people cook them.
Yeah, because they make it gross. They put it on bread.
Funny thing is, we actually also put them on bread, but not in the same way.
It's like, I know the people in the UK have like a weird food taste. It's like blood pudding and all that shit. It's like, I don't think that's an actual food. That's just hardened blood.
I love beans. I just don't like how English people cook them.
And
beans belong to us. Only us may use beans properly. You're all
actually, that's not your culture. That's not your culture,
Shut
guys.
Up. I don't care.
No, it's like it's like I'm playing you. It's like, excuse me, that's not your culture.
That's cultural appropriation.
But actually,
funnily enough, we actually use beans on bread, but not in the same way.
As for me, well, I don't like beans because I'm a very picky eater.
So do I, but beans, I would have to return my Mexican card if I didn't like beans,
It's like an Italian person who doesn't like pasta.
Yes, he will be a social outcast, shamed, and stripped of all inheritance and title, and he will deserve it, because how dare you be an Italian and don't like pasta.
But last question, actually. What is your idea of a perfect Sunday?
Oh well. My idea of a perfect Sunday will entail
Church?
getting up late-ish, like 9 a.m., because I tend to wake up at 7. Church, having a big breakfast and pancakes and bacon and waffles and the classic stuff people imagine when having a breakfast. I don't know, maybe go to the movies or go to the beach, play a couple of games. To me, like Sunday's still mostly a family day, so I would favor doing things with my family most of all, but I would try to include some friends, maybe doing a barbecue at night, carnita asada, how we say here. That's pretty much as it's pretty much a grilling party. That's what it is at night. That sounds like a very good Sunday for me. If we can play some games and paint some minis along the way, that will also be very nice.
I think for me, I think I spend most of my energies on a Saturday, and it's kind of like a hangover on a Sunday. As a metaphor, you party on Saturday, you are hungover on Sunday.
I normally do that too, but hey, it's the perfect Sunday, not the normal Sunday.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like waking up late, as you said, maybe do some painting, walking, video games, and YouTube stuff. That's kind of like my idea for a perfect Sunday, because Saturday is church night.
Yeah, I understand that.
So taboo, I know. But anyways, that's actually the last bunch of questions, and with all said and done, I think we've reached the end of the show. Is there anything you'd like to say before we call it a day?
Enjoy your hobby, people. Like, do not anyone else ruin it for you. Like, you spend too much energy, time, and money on it. Just remember why you like this thing in the first place. If you're struggling with that, and just have fun.
Mm-hmm.
You let's kill each other's little plastic soldiers in peace.
Yeah. And with all said and done, thank you, Brecht, for coming to this new episode of On Air with Jarvis.
Pleasure as always.
With all said and done, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again next time with a brand new episode. See you around, guys.